setting up a tent up there now.
Yeah.
Like January. That's fine.
I like it.
Hey, Melissa.
How are you?
Pretty good. How you, Matt?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Y'all about wore out from all the fire calls?
I've been missing them. We've had a lot of daytime stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of car accidents.
Mm-hmm.
There was one in the ditch the other day. Did you work that one on 2004?
Yeah.
What happened there? Because we were, oh, never mind, we're recording.
Oh, they're freaking out over the high price of gas.
Okay.
Well, I saw it. I saw it driving home. And I was like, I called my son-in-law. You're good, right? It kind of looked like those
That's
trucks.
the
Public comment.
comments. When this thing decides it's going to update on its own, I need to go in there and set that. Okay.
Look, Kim and Josh are both here, so that's fine. 2 viewers.
There you go.
They're not. I don't have.
So
any
they're not going to
viewers
get
right
on in
now.
view?
You and Josh are my only live friends. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Whitney may pop in like every now and then. She doesn't watch the whole thing.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We will call this meeting to order. I'd like to thank everybody that's here tonight for being here. So let's move forward and go ahead and start with if everybody will stand for the invocation and the pledges of allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to wrap your loving arms around us tonight as we meet here to connect the business of the wonderful city of Richwood, Texas. Please be with those that are not with us tonight. Continue to protect our community, our county, our state, and our country in times of unrest and turbulence across the globe. We thank you for all you do for us, especially at this time of year when we celebrate the risen Christ. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Everybody be seated. Okay. Let the record show that all council members are present tonight, and which will move us on to public comments. And I believe we have Miss Katie Brown that would like to speak to the council members.
I brought pictures of, I own the property over at 1201 Highway 288B,
Yes, ma'am.
and I think the city had given it, my next door neighbor, maybe to get his fence put
Yes.
up over there. And I brought pictures of the way that property looks, and he dumps all kinds of stuff over there, and the dust just flies, and there's no telling where that stuff comes from. I know he hauls, I don't know what, looks like concrete blocks, dirt that doesn't look very clean at all. I'm afraid of the people that breathe over there that get all covered up with dust.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no way they can keep their place clean.
Okay, that's on the east side of, and the little trailer park that runs back down.
Yep, that's
Behind it?
That's
Yes,
where I'm
ma'am.
at. That's right in front of
Yes,
my
ma'am.
I
house.
brought pictures if y'all want to. I think that's all self-explanatory.
This is out there in the trailer park, split it. Well, I'll tell you which one.
It is very bad. And then they get up at 6 o'clock.
I was over a sergeant the other day and he was hauling some stuff up there that they were scraping up off the ground.
And they put big boulders, rocks, this big out there, all the way down that fence. It fills up with water. And that big old oak tree that's out there is a probably 200-year-old tree. And I've been scared to death that they're going to kill it. It's a beautiful tree.
Yes, ma'am.
He started on the far side, I guess that's the north side, and that tree's already gone. Now he's already worked his way over to the edge of my property, and it's just a terrible mess.
So do you know, ma'am, just question, but do you know if there's any, well, you said you weren't real sure what they were bringing, just dirt, not sure where it came from, so that answers my question.
Some of it's concrete, some of it looks like that base that goes down on the road before they do the concrete, that
Yes,
gray
ma'am.
looking stuff. Some of that, some of it's old blacktop.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
They drop it and
Concrete
drop it and
boulders,
drop it
crushed
and bring
concrete.
more and more and pile up. And some of that stuff's been rained on so hard, all those piles that are just like that, they're going to take some digging to get them up. I think that man's in Honduras or someplace.
Well,
Brother's running it.
now, one thing what we do tonight, you come and talk to us about it. There's not much since it's not on the agenda tonight, but we can, city manager's here, public works director's here, code enforcement. They are now aware of it, and we can put it on the next council agenda if we need to try to do something about it.
Yeah.
Well, this one man came out there and told me all this, never gonna get stuff done. He even gave me, how many pages was that? 14 something, a whole bunch of pages of stuff. He wrote all that down a long time ago. There ain't been nothing since.
I know that's probably commercial, but there should be some kind of rule and regulation to anything that they build in the city. And he's just using it as a dump ground for stuff.
Some of those trucks out there have stickers, 2007. He just piles them trucks in there.
It's like a junkyard, and he's got stacks of old tires in there. He's got rundown buildings in there. He's got all kinds of trucks and heavy equipment and tractors and stuff.
They don't even work.
It's just there.
Well,
So I appreciate anything they could do with that.
okay. Well, we will. The folks here, they can, like I said, council can't take action on it because it's not an agenda item. However, you've got public works director,
Some of
city
you's probably
manager.
not aware of any of that stuff. going
Nobody's
on
been
over
back
there.
down there since that guy came down that was from up here. He hasn't been back down there. He told me he would come back. I even gave her the papers that he gave me that day. And he took pictures too.
It's just rules and regulations.
About how long was it? Because right now we don't have a quote-unquote code enforcement officer and building official, but
Well, there's been action.
there has been? Okay, yeah.
I mean, we did send a notice. He did let us know how expensive it was going to be. We gave him an extension to get it done.
Yeah.
He did put up fencing. He put up,
He didn't put up no fence.
He
and
put
all
up
that
a
stuff's
screen,
blowed
which is
down.
allowed by
you know what
ordinance.
That was?
and then it's
That
blown
was
down
just
since.
Yes, but it ain't no fencing. All it is some posts he set in the ground and took some kind of stuff that just rolled.
Right, which is it's a screening, which is
Yeah,
allowed by
it's a black
ordinance.
screen. It's not worth a flip.
But it's now fallen down. We have sent him a certified letter again on March 9th. We cannot take action until we have the certified return after 10 days of no response.
I don't
Right.
Then we
think
can
that's
move forward.
classified as a,
Yeah,
A
the city
fence.
gave him an extension on the fence, and it was over last July,
yeah.
and he's not done anything.
Well, that's what he put
He's
in
got some
the
posts
screening.
put up about
Yeah.
halfway down.
That's
And he
it.
put them up in concrete, 4x4 in concrete, but he never, then he put some, like, privacy screen up there.
It ain't gonna
The
hold.
first wind blew it down.
We'll, the management or our Public Works and management here will take a look at it, and then we'll let you know if we put it on the, if it's a requirement that we need to put it on next council's
Okay.
agenda. But you haven't been, your complaint hasn't fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah, I've been to the city and talked to the girl up there several times.
Yeah, and they talked to us and then they didn't do nothing.
She just
I was
tells
with
me
her.
the same thing, that it's
Yeah.
already been reported.
Okay.
But that's not classified really as a privacy fence. That little old thing.
And there's definitely some areas different areas that we might look at.
Okay.
So, all righty. Well, thank you. We
Thank y'all.
appreciate you coming down and appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other public comments, so let's move to the proclamation for Fair Housing Month, April of 2022. Our proclamation says, I, Steve Boykin, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Richwood, Texas, do hereby proclaim this month of April as Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Department of Housing and Urban Development has initiated sponsorship of activities during the month of April of each year designed to reinforce the department's commitment to the concept of fair housing and equal opportunity, and whereas the city of Richwood affirmatively supports the efforts of the federal government and the state of Texas to assure equal access to all Americans to rental housing and home ownership opportunities, and whereas the city of Richwood welcomes this opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to provide equal access to housing to all of its residents without regard to race, color, religion, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, familial status, national origin or source of income, and whereas the city of Richwood affirmatively supports programs that will educate the public concerning their rights to equal housing opportunities and to participate in the efforts with other organizations to assure every person their right to fair housing, and whereas the city of Richwood is honored to join the federal government, the state of Texas, and local jurisdictions across America in celebrating the rich diversity of our people and the right of all citizens to live where they choose without fear of discrimination. Now therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Richwood, do hereby proclaim April as the month to celebrate and honor all efforts which guarantee the right to live free of discriminatory housing practices, and proclaim this month as the month of April as Fair Housing Month. So, it's a great cause, and definitely something that we should all believe in. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Any questions? Any comments?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Melissa Strawn, how do you vote, ma'am?
Aye.
Councilmember Mayorga, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Roy Escalante, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Mark Brown, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Okay, let the record reflect that the motion is carried by unanimous vote. Also, please express the council's appreciation to Amanda Reynolds, and our congratulations for her coming to the joining the Keep Richwood Beautiful Commission.
Absolutely, I will.
We need all the help we can get. Okay, moving on to discussion and action items. Discuss and consider approving the City of Richwood staff to participate and issue requests for proposals and administrative services, RFP, and requests for qualifications, RFQ, for engineering services for the Regional Mitigation Program Council of Governments Method of Distribution, or COG MOD, program administered through the Texas General Land Office. This is a mitigation grant with funds to be used to build and implement structural projects for Hurricane Harvey eligible counties.
Mayor, Council, this is for the COGMOD grant we spoke about during the planning session. This is just to allow us to start the process for grant administration and subsequent engineering services as part of that grant.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I make a motion to approve the City of Richwood staff to participate in and issue requests for proposals for administrative services, RFP, and requests for qualifications, RFQ, for engineering services for the Regional Mitigation Program Council of Governments Method of Distribution Program administered through the Texas General Land Office.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Yarborough. We have a second.
Second.
Have a second by Councilmember Brown. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Strawn, how do you vote, ma'am?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarborough.
Aye.
Councilmember Escalante.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the motion is carried by unanimous vote. Okay, discussion and possible action regarding new streets in Oakwood Shores and how to maintain them throughout construction.
Mayor, Council, this was brought to our attention that there's some road damage in Oakwood Shores, and both Cliff and I went out and looked at it. There is some damage going on. Included in your packet is a notice that we put out. It goes out in the builder's packet. And it also gets staked in the yard of the homes that are being built. So mitigation efforts at this point basically have been increased PD patrols. They're looking at it as best they can, and bi-weekly through code enforcement is patrolling out there twice a week, Monday and Friday, to look for this. PD is more the immediate, hey, you got a track hoe or a tracked vehicle on the road or whatever the case may be. When it got brought to our attention several weeks ago, we actually found out that the county was dropping culverts in several of these locations, and some of the superficial damage on the road was from a tracked vehicle, and it looked to myself and Cliff like it's maybe where the fork, when they lowered the culvert down, it hit the road and moved off. Mitigation-wise, short of, keeping somebody behind every vehicle, it's going to be difficult to keep any road damage from happening, but we're sure doing our best and best we can. And what we're basically looking for is anything beyond superficial damage, anything that's going to go into substrate, into the foundation of the road. Then we'll be looking at that. But some of the damage that I've seen so far, Cliff said he's found some that was pretty substantial, but that's what we're trying to do by doing these notices. But I'm not sure what else we can do at that point.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
I just like council, I did follow up to, and did see some of the surface damage that was being spoke about. We did make a call to precinct 1 and reiterate, please be careful with any equipment. We also did confirm that the county does not use tracked equipment unless they're a certain distance off the easement. So mostly they have rubber tire gradals, but buckets still can and do make contact with the asphalt. So hopefully we address that enough to where they'll watch it in the future.
Question on some of these areas that are damaged, is that from personal construction or is that from county maintenance that's coming out and doing
We
it?
think it could be both. We definitely have proof of individual construction of houses. Nothing on the county as of yet.
Okay, is that something that the HOA can help us manage? They know who's building there, they can say, hey, make sure that your contractors are not doing this?
Well, yes, and they do.
Okay.
They do. If any of the board members or any residents do see anything and can assimilate that with a particular builder, they will let me know. They've been very good about it, so we just try to stay on top of it as much as possible.
Is there any recourse that we have with these builders?
This notice is put in their builder packet, and it's also staked at each lot that we have active construction on, and it advises them if we can confirm that it's them doing it or it's their damage, then we will revoke building permits. We'll do a stop work order, and there'll be no more work until they clean or repair the road.
The 3 or 4 times that we've gotten that far, the contractor usually by 5 o'clock has it remedied. So whatever, say the 3 or 4 times in the past couple of months where it's gotten to that point, we get resolution pretty quick.
So is there anything we can do? I mean, you say it's in the builder's packets and things. Is there anything where we can prevent it? Because it sounds like they're receptive once they learn they're making a mistake.
I emailed this out to all the builders that we have on file also, so they've had it emailed to them. It's in every packet, every new construction packet, and it's sent out there. So we're just looking for council's input if there's anything more that y'all think we could do, because
I think in all fairness, I do believe the contractor themselves have the best interest in mind. It's the subs. And it's somebody who's coming from out of the area who has a small portion, maybe landscaping or, whatever, a part and parcel that the sub comes in and before the contractor gets there and does what they normally do. And so it's, like I said, we've caught 3 or 4 of them doing it and got it fixed, but it's
I had told Eric, I said, I think the only remedy is just as much presence as we can, put into the subdivision as often as possible. And I mean, unfortunately, times I've gone out, everybody was offloading on the side of the road, but I made, try to touch base with all contractors out there to make sure that they understood. And I think that maybe it'd be a good practice for maybe code enforcement to do the same and just make sure that they understand that our presence is there and that we're watching.
A lot more of a problem on days like tomorrow morning after heavy rains and the trucks don't want to get out.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, and not just clean up equipment or dropping equipment on the road. Dropping equipment on the road, but the event of cleaning up, if they're using tracked vehicles, we've already seen that happen to where we gouge, the surface of the asphalt or something like that. So it's definitely more chance to happen in situations like that.
It also kind of caveats and ties into the drainage portion as well. I mean, as we discussed earlier this year, Oakwood Shores is responsible for their own drainage, which is a pretty penny, but when contractors are out there doing concrete washouts in the drainage ditches, concrete and ditches don't really mix. So we've, with the help of Cliff, have been able to get a lot of that remedied and getting these contractors to realize the error in their ways and then do it the right way. So it's been a good communication on all sides.
Drainage, whether it's the responsibility of the city or Richwood, it's all drainage. It serves a common purpose, and it's there's no reason why we wouldn't issue stop work permits if something like that would persist.
I think the return builders that we have out there will help. Building 3, 4, and 5 homes out there will help. It's the occasional new builders that come in that we're gonna have issues with until they realize how strict we are.
Can I ask, does a fine, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Does a fine schedule make it like, any more incentive for them to not do it again? I mean, I get it, stop work orders, helpful in that moment, but is something like that
I mean, we
helpful?
would have to look into enacting ordinance or.
Right, I just didn't know if that is something anybody felt like would be helpful, just
We can
because sometimes the
research-
financial,
We can research that and see what
What
other
other
communities
areas?
have done that ties into building, because, you have several hundred homes due,
right.
and
I was just curious, because if you keep having repeat offenders, it's nice sometimes to be able to say, okay, this is the third time
Yeah.
we've told you, next time there's gonna be a fine, or something like that, just,
It's business. It shouldn't even get to a third.
right,
I mean,
Yeah.
however other areas do it, maybe consider looking into that.
It might be better a type of a civil instead of a criminal type fine.
do we know if we've had repeat yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
There
Heritage
have
builders.
been, yes.
Yeah, and that was right before we enacted, it's what
The
it's what prompted us to start doing
The
it.
Right.
HOAs actually increased on their new amendments they actually increased their daily fines as well when they're out of compliance. I think from 100 to 500 a day. It was something steep to make
Yeah.
a
I mean-
point of like,
Yeah.
hey, remedy your situation. It's
Because-
costing you money.
Yeah, if we're comfortable, we're getting the information out before they put equipment on the ground,
Yeah.
then, hey, it's business.
It'll make them follow up with that.
Question for, the remedy, whenever they do the damage, and you said that they, I guess, fixed it, is to what standard are they fixing that issue? Are they just coming out and pouring some more asphalt on
it's cold patch usually,
and is there a certain qualification that they have to have in order to do that?
not unless we get into the base.
Okay. I
If
just
we
don't,
get in-
don't want it to be a subpar
Yeah.
patch job, and then it develops into something more that's gonna end up costing us a lot of money, right? So,
We haven't had any that bad yet, have we?
We've had somebody, do repairs with cold patch, but it's not necessarily classification with type D or type C hot mix or anything like that. Most of what, I would say all of what we see does not compromise the street structurally, but, lessening the asphalt, the optics of it does, but asphalt is a finishing coat. It's not a structural portion of the street. That's the base of the subgrade.
yeah.
But still enough of it, can cause cracking and stuff like that. The materials, we ask them to address it with the same materials on their asphalt, we just don't specify.
And then drainage is cut to the degree on the plat as well. That's what we mandate to the builders. I think it's 9.5 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. The drainage has to be recut too.
Yeah, and is somebody providing that oversight to make sure? Is that somebody from the city? Is that
As
you?
far as
or-
drainage, no, with the streets, yes, we've had one occurrence that they performed a repair. That's one that we can pinpoint, and yes, I did follow up, and make sure that they did.
Okay. Yeah, just don't want a subpar job and then it develops into something worse.
Sure.
No, and I appreciate all the attention because, our roads are a great investment. We put a lot of money in them and we need to watch after them, safeguard them, and yeah, we need to be strict with these people.
Yeah, we went back and forth a lot before we, spent the money out there with the county, whether we should do it now or once we were much further along in build out, and we were told with the normal truck traffic delivering that we wouldn't have any issues. And it doesn't sound like we are, it's just the tracked equipment and the stuff that's not supposed to be on there. So I'm in favor of they know it in the builder's packet, then let's move to fines if possible.
Yeah, I think I would be inclined to be on board with that. I mean, we can't allow them to cause damage to our investment, that's crazy. They just gotta move off the road and there's no issue. So,
We'll definitely bring it back.
Josh?
What evidence does the city need? Do they need to actually have a picture or evidence of them on the roadway?
It would
or
help
tracks
us.
leading into
It would help
the
a lot.
into the property.
I think tracks leading into the property would be
Yeah.
sufficient if we can identify the equipment with the tracks that are made. I think that would be sufficient and fair.
Just real quick, if you're going to, so at the end of the day, you gotta enforce it at some point in time, so enforce this fine, whether it comes through here, just in court. To answer Josh's question, like evidence-wise, it really would come in our desk. So I would think something, pictures, any video, stuff like that's gonna be probably the most effective to say, hey, this is the first, second, third, we're now at this $500 fine, whatever it is. Getting to being able to actually prove it up in front of the judge is what we need. So video, pictures, if it was during the event, that would be great. Odds of that being able to happen unless somebody's sitting out there with a camera is probably slim, but the more the better.
Question I have is, the city would hold the stop work, right? And so then they would start to issue these fines with the evidence that was presented by HOA or by City Works, and it would be up to the city to receive the funds to issue the proceed to work, right? So it would never come to you.
Oh, no, it would. If it's a fine, it's gonna be a citation issued,
So
so
they
it
can
goes to
test
court.
it, so if they can test it, it goes in front of the judge.
Yeah.
And that's,
If we're gonna fine anybody, it's gonna go, it's
now, a
gonna
lot
be a
of times,
citation to
especially
here.
business stuff, those things get worked out, as the
So-
city's saying,
Right.
pretty easily, because it's about, and especially if they're building a home, they gotta get going. So more often than not, that stuff's gonna resolve itself. But worst case scenario, downstream, pictures, videos, yes, that's what helps.
The process on our end is, we notice the violation occurred, we issue the stop work order, and they have until end of business to get it cleaned before their permits are reactive. And then,
Or at least a
should they
plan.
not do it, then I would
That
send PD, if these fines were enacted, or the ordinance adopted to fine people. Then after they don't clean it up, then we would send somebody over to fine them every day they're out of compliance. That's how it worked, but it would be a ticket issued to appear before the judge.
Okay.
And then they just still wouldn't get the stop, I mean, they would have to clean it up, just as any other violation occurs for having a tent up that you can't. Once they take it down, they still have the ticket, but they can continue to work. So they'll get their permits back, but they'll still have a ticket.
One more thing, remind me, to get a building permit, they don't need to get a building permit to put down the pad.
Like to
It's
build,
just
do the
to
dirt
start
work?
building, the foundation and everything, but doing the pad, they don't need a building permit yet.
Not for the dirt work, no.
So that's what we're seeing a lot of the track vehicles, when they're building a pad and they're clearing the property.
Yeah.
So if we were to require them to get a building permit first to build the pad, then we would know whenever they're going to start with monitor.
So they would get a copy of this prior to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
so a lot
no-
of the dirt work,
They may
the
not
earth
know.
No
moving
permits
on.
are pulled
The dirt companies,
until-
A lot of the clearing of the
Concrete.
properties, a lot of it's lack of supervision from the builders. They all use pretty much the same contractors, and they're doing it the same way.
How much of it is, if any, is homeowners that are doing their own land clearing and maybe not aware? Do we,
They all hired it out,
okay.
they need big machinery for it.
Do we have we sent communication to the actual homeowners, though, property owners?
We send it whenever we see it, to the homeowners and to the, if we know who the contractors are, we'll send it to them too.
Yeah.
But we have a certain steps we have to follow through the HOA, first letter, second letter, certified letter.
I mean, when we started this, every builder that is currently building in the city has received this. Whether they have an active lot construction out there or not. Laura gave me the list of every builder we have registered,
Just
and they did get it,
blanket.
but there's gonna be new ones maybe if I don't know.
So the HOA also, what's on this notice mirrors what's we updated the guidelines to. So that's why kind of like the pads before the permit, but we put these stipulations in the HOA so they're aware, so at least the HOA has a legal standing and some bite, so I think
Because
it
y'all are,
would,
I mean, HOA is the first point of contact, because we don't even issue permits until we get HOA approval on their plans.
because we have to they have to go through an approval.
Before they even start the pad, to go through the permit process before they even start. The
At that point, has HOA already approved their plans? See, we don't normally send any permit to BBG until HOA approves it, because just like with the replats, if HOA doesn't approve it, then it doesn't get to go further with us. So we usually have them give us the HOA house plan approval before we give them any green light for the city to do work. Because should y'all come back and say no, then we'll be like, they'll say, well, the city already told us yes.
So if they start building their pad and they don't have approval, building
We don't know that they don't, because they don't have to get a permit for dirt work.
Attention, say, hey,
Yeah.
they're building without a permit, or whatever, we go through our steps.
We're still gonna miss
If it was pad,
the land clearing part,
Right.
right?
Which is a lot of the tracked vehicles, I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
the tracked vehicle, we're still
Yeah.
gonna miss that part.
If it was pad, we've always, I think that's just kind of a policy, or no, I'm sorry, procedure. We've always allowed people to progress as long as they don't cross the boundary of anything that requires permitting. If they own the property and they want to modify the property, they can do it in any way they see fit, moving dirt in, removing trees, or anything like that. I would think that what would go for one would need to go for all. If we were to do something like
Citywide.
that. I don't know if it's within the HOA's authority to be able to, in the exchange of the approval of a house before it gets to the city, to say that it can't be done, or if the city wants to just proceed with that. But in construction, if you can't do a single thing, you can make progress, and homeowners as well, can make progress by doing dirt work approval of the plans. And time is money, it generally benefits the homeowner, but I understand what Josh is saying. It could be a possibility, but I think it needs to be done across the board.
Josh, do they need to notify y'all, or is there a stipulation in y'all's bylaws that says that they should notify you when they start clearing land for that? Because that might get past if you had something in there that says when you get ready to clear the land, clear the property, then the HOA needs to know in the event that there's some complaint or something that comes up. That way, that would kind of bypass the permit issue. And as soon as they start clearing the land, then that includes the everything past that. So, yeah, the pictures and videos, if you can get them, especially if you can get them in action, if you can get identifiers on the vehicles, people, which it's just like you got a guy speeding. If you find him later and he's not in the car, you can't really prove that he was driving the car that fast. It was just his car that was doing it. So if you can get somebody, when you come, get pictures of it and identifiers on the vehicles, things like that, then that's
the pictures that have been provided by the HOA, we've been
Right.
able to in action already, so they've definitely done that.
Yeah, right now, it's pretty easy to identify, prima facie evidence.
Yeah.
That's the only house being built right
Right.
there, but, maybe in a year or two from now, when you have
Might be a little more.
4 and 5 homes building on the same stretch, it might be hard. Or like Rory said, if you've got the same contractor who's shuttling equipment from this house to that house, then we're going to have a hard time pinning that down.
I
But
think it's going to be easier if council approves a code enforcement officer in the future. It's going to be a lot easier to identify this, free up the PD to do other work.
Even then, I mean, I don't disagree with the code enforcement officer. I think it's been needed since we got rid of since the last one retired, but it sounds like there is a significant gap for homeowners and or anybody doing a bunch of dirt work before they get a permit. And some of them can, I mean, not saying all of them, if we've contacted all the builders, but a lot of them may be ignorant to the fact that they can't. Not that they shouldn't. They should know the tracked vehicles are tearing up the roads, and they probably see their damage as soon as they do it. But
What's the impact as well with them doing dirt work without proper engineering and the flooding effects that they could have on the adjoining neighbors, right? Is if they build up high enough or do enough stuff, they can really affect their neighbors.
I mean, there's no cap on how high they can build. There's just a minimum. Unless the HOA has something, but as far as
because we have
city
requirements
goes,
for developers that come over here and build a house, but if somebody's doing the work themselves, what is the recourse there?
well, I mean, there's certain things that, like electrical and plumbing wise, that homeowners can do. We can't tell them they have to have a professional on their personal property unless
I'm
it
just
comes
talking about
down.
the dirt work, right? If somebody went out there and just decided they were gonna build a mountain in the middle of
We-
the
I mean, there's inspections
We fight
that
that
occur.
within the city as well. It's,
Yeah, I mean, they just have to do a base bare minimum elevation.
The amount of houses that are coming in now, we really like to work with the city and Cliff and get a plan and maybe meet one day, see what we can do to offset some of these problems.
let's do it.
Sounds good.
Before it turns into a bunch of ant mounds.
Mm-hmm.
As far
A
as.
couple of them already.
Right, and that's what we're gonna see, because people are so afraid of flooding.
Yeah.
They're gonna wanna build up extremely high, but we have no cap, I mean, we don't have a cap. It's we go based on FEMA minimum flood levels. And,
I mean, because that
They're
is, that
inspected.
is related to the streets as well, right? So if they start putting a whole lot of water towards the street and our drainage can't handle it, now it's gonna start tearing up our streets in the subbase, right? So
yeah,
I really
probably
think
take some
it's a
engineering.
big picture we need to look at.
Well, especially, you know, the concrete pad of the house, how high you raise it is one thing, but especially if you start trying to raise your entire yard, a significant portion. I mean, some of those at Oakwood Shores, or excuse me, at Bar X, you can see that where they didn't just do their house because they didn't want a steep hill. They went and, I mean, they leveled the whole lot.
And then your driveway is way up there and,
Yeah.
it's just.
We have one house on Redfish that was, before we came to council, they did the extra 2.5.
Yeah,
And it's really big, and it's gonna cause problems in the future for the neighbors around.
Because you know how it is flooding is a big deal, right? And we don't want to flood our neighbors just because we want our house to sit up higher than somebody else's. So.
my neighbor built a concrete pad in their backyard, and all the water goes into mine now, so I get it. We can definitely draft something and set a special meeting or something.
Okay. So I assume we have no action at this time, but we will move on and have the meeting, see if we can work a workable plan and ordinance.
Do we need a follow-up agenda item for this?
We could,
I got another question. I mean, this, looking at how it's worded, you know, discussing new streets. You know, we know we've got the last 2.5 miles, and we talked about that during the workshop some. Is there any hesitation to do them now? I mean, now that we're starting to see, I don't want to push it to where we don't have the county and we have to wait, 4+ years, because the county gives us, that makes it very cost effective to do the roads. But professional opinion, do we think the damage we're seeing is bad enough that we'd be better off waiting?
I think, Matt, that we're gonna have to pull the trigger. It's now or never. Because
Okay.
we are funding this some with, or proposing to fund this with bond funds. Those bond funds need to be spent,
Yeah.
so we don't face any arbitrage or anything like that. We need to get it done. So it's now or never. We could wait, and to tell you the truth, we don't know what the future holds for houses bringing in 110+ loads of dirt.
Yeah.
We're just building roads to the best quality that we can
Okay.
with the information we have. I think now's the time to get it done.
No, that's fair, and we'll just
I
do what
think
we
that-
can on the other end.
Getting a code enforcement officer would help mitigate a lot of those concerns and potential damages. And then just like how we saw earlier with the elderly lady that was in here, just code enforcement to be able to take care of the whole city.
And plus, it sounds like we're being very preemptive about this and communicating it very well, so great job with that. And I think, as long as we're managing that and the HOA is aware of stuff and they have active members that are reporting stuff, I think that it should resolve itself, and hopefully there's nothing majorly structurally wrong, and we can get that 2.5 miles done, and they'll be in good shape.
Eric, do y'all think we'd have something in next month's meeting for a follow-up on this, or?
We can put it in there for now, and if
Okay.
not, we'll take it out.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, if there's no other action on that, we will move on to discuss and consider adopting Ordinance 22-487, amending Chapter 13, Article 5, Sections 103 through 105, adding provisions to prohibit camping and the storage of personal property on public property.
Mayor, Council, this was brought to our attention, public nuisance, and what we found in the research for this is basically we are restricted to enforcing the ordinances only on public property or public access property. We cannot and will not enforce ordinances on private property. But this is a ordinance taken from Lake Jackson, and it seemed to work pretty well over there. We went through and looked at it. Matt has looked at it as well. But again, I think this gives us another tool in the toolkit to help us preemptively. Should we start having a problem like this, it helps with mitigation in that aspect. But again, this was basically what Lake Jackson used in their situation, and they had several pretty unique situations over there. I think Matt's well aware of that as well, but I have to stress, this is public property only.
Yeah, and if I may add a little bit, just as Eric's saying, you really got to look at property in two ways, public, private. As part of this issue, I think occurred on private property, we do have ordinances in place such as they're zoned for commercial purposes. So if there was, for example, somebody using something for a residential purpose, that would give us the ability to potentially do something about it. So if it was, for example, you start seeing a camp, multiple people setting up, well, we could clear that out. So I don't want the council to be alarmed that we can't do anything. That's just not true. If it's on a commercial piece of property, we can take care of that. And again, if somebody does something on a private homeowner, for example, having your kids camp out in the backyard, well, they're allowed to do that. We can't prevent that piece of it. But this became a huge issue in Austin, really last year, the year before, where you just had people camping everywhere. Almost overran the city, essentially. What the state did is they passed House Bill 1925 that went into effect in September last year, which basically says you cannot just camp in public areas. So there is already legislation in place just in Texas that you can't do it unless there's designated campgrounds and things like that. So what we're really doing is doubling down. Lake Jackson had done theirs prior to this House bill. So really we're just doubling down on what the state's already done. But I don't want anybody on the council to think that we can't enforce our ordinances such as zoning and things like that, indecent lewd acts, drug use, things along. We can still take care of that on private property, but we can't tell somebody how they can use their property if it is, like, for example, a private homeowner. We're going to be really restricted in that vein, unless it's something regarding public health, public safety.
Or I think one of the main issues with this person in general was they loitered at a store seemingly all day long. We can't control that. If they're there, they're there. The business has to tell them to move on. We can't tell them to move on.
Now, if the business wants to ask the police department to, get them off the property, then that's a different story too.
So if they were to set up a tent and try to camp there on a commercial property, that's something that we can step in, and that the police could step in, even if the business owner says it's okay. Is that something that
When
can
you start
still
getting
be?
into the property being used for residential purposes,
Right.
That's the issue. So when you cross that line, I'm not talking about somebody, essentially wearing an umbrella hat and sitting down on the side of the road. You have to really take steps, and we want to be sure that we're not going to get some civil rights attorney or something in here causing a problem about camping. But again, if you set up a tent and you start truly amassing stuff, this is what happened in Lake Jackson.
Washing your clothes on the side of the building, things like that.
Washing your body on the side of the
washing your body on the side
You
of
got to be careful with that as well, though. There is a line, but then again, lots of times kids are outside washing themselves off in a water hose. So does that cross over just because of the rags on their body? You got to be careful with that. So we want to make sure that that is something they're using it for a residential purpose. But if somebody says, yeah, you go around the side and wash your face off,
Right.
or wash, now, again, if you're completely unclothed, well, we can stop that because it's indecent exposure. So there are just some gray areas and some lines that we want to make sure that, not that it's not an issue, but there is a line that you push up against, and then when somebody for sure crosses it, well, absolutely, we can enforce our laws.
I got two things. Section 13105, warning required. No person may be arrested or given a citation for violating sections 13103 or 13104 until that person has received an oral or written warning to cease the prohibited conduct. No more than one warning per individual is required. Per individual total is the correct intent of that, correct? Not one, camping at this location and then moving to the other side of town and camping at another location.
No, you can't go 5 feet down the street, no.
Okay.
Once you're issued that citation.
It follows the person.
Right.
Okay.
The location.
I just want to make sure. And then the second thing, dealing with this situation, has staff or our PD, can they, put together a small resource packet of, or do we already have certain avenues for that so that, if we run across these, situations, we can, be prepared, still with a gracious heart. I mean,
Yeah, we discussed that, and this person that kind of preempted this actually has a home, and they're staying north of Three Bridges. They just come down during the day. The one time they, I think, camped out, so to speak, was they couldn't get into their house, but they actually have a home.
okay.
But yes, we discussed that and what services are available and so on.
That'll be good.
Now, a good example of the public property, because we had this for many years, tied up the fire department and the ambulance 2 or 3 times, but under the bridge at Oyster Creek. We had a gentleman that lived there. We got fire calls over there because he was cooking his meals, and we had to go pick him up because he got snake bit once, and then he got cold. He got drunk, so he got arrested so he could go over to Oyster Creek and stay in the jail where it was warm. I think that's probably about the only, the biggest violation you'd see in this city would be right there under the bridge on public property.
And state law prohibits that now, and our ordinance will as well.
Right.
So this is an ordinance in Lake Jackson already, or one similar to it? Have they had anybody protest it or file suits or anything due to it?
Not that I'm aware of. Specifically why this came up was because it was right next to our office.
I wonder who drafted it.
I mean,
Anonymous email of an ordinance drafted.
there were, but underneath where the Dow old office building museum, that whole area had become just a campground almost. And then across from there where the old laundromat, they were all there too. And same thing, it was a warning once, and they arrested them once and arrested them again.
But wouldn't that have been private property?
No.
Business?
Yeah, they were on this sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah. So the private property owner couldn't really do anything about it because they were on public access. So they're asking the city to do something about it. That's where this ordinance came to be. But it addressed the problem, and I haven't seen any back in almost probably a year and a half, 2 years now. So
Okay.
it's
Just curious.
They moved
We
it
heard of
to a
stuff like that
neighborhood.
happening on the news.
That's where they went.
Well, sure. I think you'd see it more likely into a more populated area. The city, you'll have the civil rights folks come out. And there's always constitutional concerns because you have the right to assemble, and there's property concerns, but for public purposes, the state took care of it. So you cannot camp in a public area unless the city or the governmental entity says, this is designated campground, things along those lines. This is parkland, you can do it in, stuff like that.
So I had one more. The property owner's been made aware that this is going on their property, correct?
That's correct.
So, okay. Were they given options to where if they choose that they do not want this happening anymore, do they contact the city and have the police, like, do they have an avenue to be able to remove them?
Yes.
And say, you're not allowed to be here anymore? If they request that kind of, okay, but they haven't wanted to at this point?
They indicated that they did not wish that to happen.
Okay.
So with their permission, we can move them on.
Okay.
Just to my understanding, the property owner did not know that that was happening. It was the employees that was.
That's correct.
Just
giving
letting them,
them.
okay.
That's, so it would officially have to be the one property owner for all of the building, not those individual business owners even, correct? How granular can we get? Because there's already.
Yeah,
If they're in front of their door,
Well, I
by
think,
their entrance, could they call?
at some point you have implied consent.
Okay.
I
As a
mean,
tenant.
if a person is a manager or a department head, they're speaking on behalf of the company.
I think he means like could the donut shop call
Yes.
instead of
Oh,
the
Yeah,
gas
that's what we-
station
yeah.
owner.
Well, the
Or the property.
donut shop is actually the owner of the donut shop.
Mhm.
So
It's their space.
It's their
Right,
space.
so
If
they
they're
could- they could call.
camped out in front of the
Okay.
donut shop, then they
Right.
call.
I thought since
You
they
mean
were
could the pizza-
leasing the building,
Yeah,
but, the Third Coast Pizza can do it themselves, Donuts can do it themselves.
And just think of it in the terms of a motel room. When you get a key to a motel room, that's your house.
Okay.
So it's yours and you own it,
So
so.
any of them could reach out and say,
Yes.
this person's in need, okay. Thank you, that helps clear it up. I wasn't sure
Sure.
what avenues they had. If they did, they just would call the city or call the police and
I spoke to both the owner and the manager, and I think it's cleared up.
it's
now.
clear to them, okay.
I hope.
Thank you for reaching out.
So do we need a motion here to adopt this?
if y'all want to enact this ordinance, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance 22-487, amending chapter 13, articles 5, sections 103 through 105, adding provisions to prohibit camping and the storage of personal property on public property.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Strawn, how do you vote, ma'am?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarborough, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Escalante, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the motion is carried unanimously. Okay, that moves us on to capital improvement projects update.
So, we've got at the North Water Plant, we've got the majority of a tank. They're moving along nicely with that, from what I understand. Strand Associates will be out this week to note any abutments on the tank, being fill valves, manways, stuff like that. A couple of them are already in place. They are still anticipating substantial completion of the tank by the end of this month. On the streets, we have our final walkthrough tomorrow at 10 a.m. With the walkthrough, we understand there are some punch list items. They know getting into the walkthrough, there's going to be some punch list items that have already been identified and discussed. We're not necessarily concerned with things such as hydromulch or any of the finishing touches. It's other things that have been left undone. But once we do that, we are going to roll into the drainage pre-construction meetings. It's the same contractor doing it. So we have that going on with the streets. The disaster recovery project, the sewer line rehabilitation is complete, 100%. I've received all the final paperwork from Strand Associates. It'll be filed and the project closed out. I'd expressed to council that there were a couple of change orders, being that we couldn't replace several of the manholes within that project area because of the fact of conflict with public utilities, other utilities being phone and natural gas. But they, fortunately, all of them were considered structurally sound, so they rehabilitated them to the best of their ability. The Arpa projects, the generators and South Water Plant. We have all the information that we can get into Strand. We are waiting and anticipating cost opinions to come to us any day, hopefully this week. And at that point in time, we can take a comprehensive look at the full project list and start comparing that to the money we have to work with and start taking things off the shelf if we need to. So we'll see how it goes. And then drainage, I'll be talking with Matula tomorrow. We'll get a little bit more solid start date. It's a little bit up in the air. We're thinking I think towards the end of April, but I'll hopefully have a little bit better idea by tomorrow when we're going to start that project. So, other than that, that's about all I have.
I got a question for you, sir. For the North Tank Farm, are we painting that tank?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What would the process be, or who would it, to have something painted on that down the road? This would be a future project, but what would we look at for a Welcome to Richwood, or is that a KRB thing, or is that, I don't know, I think I was driving by it the other day and I thought that would be cool in the future to have something there. I mean, it's going to be a pretty good billboard, so I just don't know what that process would look like.
A lot of times it's easier to address in the preventative maintenance contract that we have with Suez.
Okay.
When they repaint the tank, but unfortunately it's probably 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
10, 15 years down the road when they put another full coating on it.
Okay.
Right now we only have it within the contract for the newest city logo facing a certain direction, which being FM 2004. We don't.
Okay, so we are going to put.
It's like a water tank.
So we are going to put our city logo on it.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't know if we were going to leave it.
I think it's the one that's on.
If we're going to leave it blank, that was going to be kind of. But if we're putting the logo on it, then
It will be there.
that'll work.
Any other questions?
Is that gonna have the city slogan on it with it?
It's going to be the
complete,
newest.
the complete city slogan that's not just the focus
No.
on the future?
No, it's the newest logo.
It's just the
City of
logo.
Richwood, Texas.
Okay.
It's the newest logo.
Yeah.
City of Richwood, Texas.
Because I don't want to forget, you know, I've seen that on our cars and it's chopped off, the city slogan.
Yeah.
And you don't want to forget the past.
We did not add a slogan.
Yeah.
It's just going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it coming up back, well, it's actually in the paper, that it was passed by council years ago. So, all righty.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks, Cliff. City manager's report.
Mayor, Council, just kind of regurgitating Friday's, still working on quotes for the PD server. Making some progress on this. Had a meeting this Friday with a vendor. Hopefully we're getting that cost back under control a little bit. Debt information for annual report of certain financial and local debt report is now posted on the website. This is part of our Transparency Stars. We have put in for our second Transparency Star, which is for debt obligations. So hopefully we'll soon have 2 of those, along with our the one we have now. So we're hopefully that will be soon. 2 of our fleet vehicles sold at auction. We're very, very pleased with the results from that. $2,645 for one, $85.85 for another, and that's after fees were collected. We still have 2 more to go, but that's a very good sign. We're used to getting $500 to $1,000 for each vehicle, so that's significant. Still down 1 officer at the police department on COVID leave. As Cliff said, final walkthrough on the streets tomorrow. And work continues on North Water Plant. That's all I've got.
Okay, any questions? All right, moving on to council member reports and comments. Mike Johnson, you got anything?
No, just appreciate all the hard work from the city and staff, and KRB went out there and made another sign look good, so appreciate all that, and moving in the right direction for the community. Thank you.
Melissa?
Just wanted to welcome Amanda Reynolds to KRB. I think that's great, seeing more people involved. That was it. Thank you for all y'all's hard work.
Matt?
Just a comment or more of a question, if we could get some feedback on Tropical Storm Nicholas and repayment, if there's any activity in Texas or the government looking to refund, see if there's anything out there.
We've had nothing yet.
Nothing? Okay.
Looks like it's
Widespread.
unfortunately probably dead in the water. But on the good side of things, we did just learn that we have an additional about 82,000 coming to us for COVID relief that we had already absorbed, which offsets that. So
Okay.
good and bad. We applied for it, didn't get it, and then they changed the rules after the fact, so we're getting that. So it's a little better than a wash. So
Okay.
take the good with the bad.
Yeah. No, just hadn't heard anything, so I appreciate that though.
I would consider it
Dead.
probably gone.
Okay.
Roy?
Just had a question on the RFP that was in the paper on the 17th, RFP 22-001 and 002 for the debris removal. I'm just curious to see, did ours expire? Is it a yearly?
It was
Because
a
I
2-year
know we
with
had-
automatic annual, and that
Yeah.
was done before Michael
Because
left.
we had
so
that
it's been-
same company that did that was pretty steep. It was like, what, $350,000?
It had been a while since we
We
went out.
we decided 4 months ago, we went back and sat down and looked at all of the contracts in the city, and basically anything that's on an auto renew that's gone past one time,
Okay.
we're reissuing those.
Okay.
It's just time to take a better look, see what's out there.
Yeah. See if they can.
There are a little bit more interest in Southeast Texas now because of the repeated storm damage, that you will get newer companies come in to bid for those. Where it's kind of stagnant for a while, they won't. But we've also reached out to some companies that are historically been good down here. So hopefully we'll see what that brings us.
Good deal. Yeah, I just saw that and was kind of curious, and hopefully we can save some money and we'll get some more bidders in and
Yeah, it had been
get a better
quite
price
few
than
years.
what we paid the last one. So, all right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mark?
I would also like to echo the KRB. Thank y'all for y'all's efforts and the volunteers that spent the time to do that. Looks awesome. Great job. Thank y'all very much for that. And welcome, Amanda. Thank you for volunteering your time. Also like to recognize our first responders. Thank y'all for your efforts, and please see them out in my community, in the parks, interacting with the public, and I love that. That's great, so thank y'all for doing that, being present. And staff, thank y'all. Looks like we're doing great so far this year, and keep it up. Thank y'all.
Okay, mayor's report. I've got, other than be careful the next 24 hours, we're going to have some pretty nasty weather. The one thing that I do have is I received, I got a request to call a citizen a few days back, and I was kind of wondering, it was kind of a surprising call, actually. And I wanted to pass this on to the members of council and the department heads and all of our folks at KRB, because basically the things that we discussed all revolve around all the hard work that everybody's done here and how well things are going within the city these days. This citizen wanted to thank me for a lot of the road work that had been going on in his neighborhood and things that were getting done. Not to mention the fact that they had noticed that over the past few years we'd been working on getting the budget straightened out and making things, getting some extra money in the coffers in the event we have a problem. And that we've done a lot of work on streets. They've seen our police department out doing a lot of work, and they've been proud of everything that they've been doing there. The fire department, but and I told them, I said it was, you know, the council is here to help guide and help oversee. And with the management and the personnel that we have in the city, you couldn't ask for some better people to work with, because they're the ones that's bringing these things around full circle. They bring them to the council. They explain them right to us, explain them to us where we can understand them, and bring us the information that we need. And it was kind of a humbling thing, really, you know, because normally when I get a phone call from a citizen, it's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but this was just out of the blue. And I just wanted to let everybody know that people out there are noticing. The citizens are noticing. The team that we have here right now, council, department heads, and all the personnel, our volunteers, volunteer fire department, KRB. I mean, people are noticing the great job that's being done and how things are going, and that we're moving forward, not backwards. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to everybody that I just mentioned. And if I missed anyone, please let them know that we've come in the last 3 years, 2 years, we've come a long way. And it's because we're all working together. And it's because we got great people working. And I hope everyone knows that it is appreciated, not only by me, but by the citizens. Other than that, that's it. Do we have any future agenda items? I think we already put one on there. Okay.
We'll fill it up for you.
Okay. Well. All right. Well, it looks like we can call this adjourn this one at 7:10 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, man.